The classified ad had been running in the Mystic weekly for 3 months. $80,000 a year for a private driver at the Whitmore estate. No one wanted the job. Samuel Carter stared at the crumpled paper in his calloused hands. Unpaid bills stacked on the table like accusations. His thumb hovered over his phone before he finally hit call. When an elderly voice answered, he had no idea he was stepping into a job that would change everything. The Whitmore mansion rose on the Connecticut coastline, like a monument carved from grief itself. Samuel's rusted sedan looked out of place against the iron gates and creeping October fog. 15 acres of manicured ground stretched around him, but the estate felt abandoned, silent in a way that made the skin on his arms prickle. Arthur, the butler who'd answered his call, waited at the main entrance. He had the posture of someone raised in a different era, softened only by his eyes that held sympathy and warning. "Mr. Carter," he said quietly, "she's been expecting you." The foyer swallowed sound. Samuel's footsteps vanished into velvet drapes and oil portraits of stern Whitmore ancestors. Dust sheets covered furniture, like ghosts waiting to breathe again. Something about the house felt suspended, as if the walls were holding their breath. Margaret Whitmore stood in the study with her back to them, staring out at the gray Atlantic. She wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Samuel's yearly rent. When she turned, her beauty struck like winter, cold, sharp, and dangerous. Her slate-colored eyes carried a heaviness he recognized instantly. "You need this job," she said. Not a question. Her voice was rough, as if seldom used. "I need someone who doesn't ask questions. Arthur will explain the duties." She brushed past him, leaving only a trace of perfume and something metallic, like the taste of old tears. Arthur watched her go, then spoke softly. 8:30 every morning. You will drive her to 4 locations, 30 minutes at each. Precisely. She won't explain. She won't speak. She just needs reliability. His gaze lingered on Samuel's worn jacket, the exhaustion in his shoulders. Sometimes silence is all we have left. Samuel thought of Grace, his 7-year-old daughter, who hadn't smiled since her mother's funeral. He thought of the eviction, notice taped to their apartment door. He nodded. The first weeks were a quiet routine that felt like sinking. Every morning, Samuel dropped Grace at school, watching her small figure disappear through the gate, her backpack seeming too heavy for someone so young. She barely spoke anymore. She still set a place for her mother at the kitchen table. His apartment in the rougher side of Mystic was falling apart. Chip paint, leaks, a window that never closed. After medical bills and funeral costs, it was all he could afford. At exactly 8:30 every morning, Margaret emerged from the mansion precisely on time, immaculate and expressionless. She slipped into the back seat without greeting him, leaving a folded slip of paper with the day's destinations. The stops were always the same. Mystic General Hospital. She sat in the parking lot staring at the pediatric wing. Pfizer, Hartley and Associates, a law office where she always returned with red-rimmed eyes. An abandoned lot on Riverside Drive. Nothing but a shattered foundation. Connecticut Mutual Bank. Her final stop, always conducted with precision. She never spoke. She never explained. Samuel watched her white-knuckled grip on her purse, the way her breath hitched at ambulance sirens, the way she closed her eyes when passing certain streets. He realized Margaret Whitmore wasn't cold. She was frozen, and the silence in the car became its own language. By week 4, he adjusted routes when her breathing grew rapid near the hospital. He warmed the car when she trembled leaving the empty lot. She never acknowledged these gestures, but sometimes, just briefly, her eyes met his in the rear-view mirror. 2 people drowning quietly in their own grief, sharing the same air. Arthur began leaving Samuel good coffee, sometimes sandwiches wrapped in wax paper, as if silently thanking him for holding the pieces of a woman who was barely standing. One afternoon, Grace was sent home early from school. With no one to watch her, Samuel had to bring her along. When Margaret saw the child, she froze, not with irritation, but with a pain so raw that Samuel felt it cut through the air. Throughout the rounds, Grace sat quietly, drawing in her notebook. At the empty lot, she whispered, "My mom liked empty spaces." She said they're full of possibilities. Margaret inhaled sharply, the loudest sound she'd made in weeks. The rain came heavy one Tuesday afternoon as they sat outside the hospital. The storm blurred the world into silver streaks. Samuel found himself breaking the silence. "Do you ever want to talk?" Margaret didn't answer at first. The rain hammered the roof, filling the space where her breath should have been. Finally, "I'm not used to talking anymore." "Neither is Grace," he said. "She hasn't spoken in class all year." "How did she die?" Margaret asked quietly. "Pancreatic cancer. 6 months from diagnosis to..." He swallowed. Grace was there at the end. "I don't know if it was right." "There is no right or wrong with grief," Margaret said. "Only surviving it or not." Another silence, this one softer. She exhaled shakily. "The pediatric ward. My son was there 3 days before he..." She broke off. "I come here to punish myself." Samuel didn't tell her punishment wasn't healing. He barely believed that himself. Instead, he whispered, "Grace punishes herself with silence. I punish myself with work. Maybe we're all trying to control something after the world, prove we control nothing." Margaret lifted her eyes. For the first time, she looked at him, not past him. "Your daughter," she said. "Does she like to draw?" "It's the only thing that helps." "Art supplies are expensive," she murmured. She said nothing more, but something in the air shifted. The next day, Margaret directed him to the art supply store. Inside, she chose quality brushes, paper, and paints with quiet purpose. "For your daughter," she told him. "Children shouldn't pay the price for our grief." That night, when Grace opened supplies, she whispered through tears. "Mom said sad colors make the happy ones brighter." The longest sentence she'd spoken in months. Samuel held her as she cried, and he realized she didn't lack words, just the tools to express what her heart had been carrying. The following morning, Margaret noticed the paint under Grace's nails. "May I see?" she asked gently. Grace showed her a drawing of 3 figures in a rain-soaked car filled with warm golden light. "You see light in storms," Margaret said. "That's a rare gift." Grace smiled, and the ice inside Margaret began slowly to thaw. Samuel followed Mr. Whitmore through a long hallway lined with portraits, oil paintings of stoic men and elegant women, each one staring with cold pride. It felt like walking through history that didn't want him there. At the end of the corridor stood a heavy oak door. Mr. Whitmore opened it. Inside, the room was warm, lit by the soft glow of lamps. A teenage boy sat in an armchair near the window, shoulders hunched, eyes fixed on the quiet forest beyond the estate grounds. "This is Adrian," Mr. Whitmore said. Samuel bowed his head. "Nice to meet you, sir." The boy didn't look at him. "He doesn't speak," Mr. Whitmore continued softly, "and he rarely lets anyone near him, but you'll drive him to appointments, outings, and whatever else he requests." His voice tightened. "Respect his space. Protect him, and don't let him wander alone." Samuel nodded even though he didn't understand the underlying fear hidden in the man's voice. "Adrian," Mr. Whitmore said, kneeling in front of the son, "this is your new driver, Samuel." The boy turned his head slightly, slowly raising his hand, and began signing. Mr. Whitmore's expression darkened. He looked helpless. Samuel frowned. Sorry, I don't understand sign language." For the first time, Adrian looked at him directly. His eyes were an unusual gray, sharp, observant, assessing. He signed something again, slower. Mr. Whitmore sighed. "He's saying, 'You won't last either.'" Samuel swallowed. "I'll try my best." Adrian's stare lingered for 3 quiet seconds before he looked away. "Your quarters will be near the garage," Mr. Whitmore said. "You start tomorrow." The next morning, as Samuel walked to the garage, he heard a sound, barely a whisper. Footsteps. He turned. Adrian stood a few feet away, hoodie on, hands in pockets. The boy signed something fast. "I told you I don't..." Samuel stopped, watching Adrian roll his eyes, then gesture for him to follow. Okay, I'm coming." Adrian led him to the car, a sleek black SUV that looked too expensive for Samuel to even breathe on. The teen typed something on his phone, and held it up. Drive. Lake. Now. Samuel blinked. Did your dad approve? Adrian was already opening the back door. All right, Samuel muttered. Lake it is. As soon as the car pulled out of the state gates, Adrian's cold mask softened. He leaned his head against the window, watching trees blur by, breathing like someone who finally had fresh air in his lungs. Samuel spoke gently. So you like the lake? Adrian didn't answer, but when they arrived, he stepped out quickly, moving to the water's edge as if drawn by something unseen. He closed his eyes, letting the wind brush over him. For the first time, he didn't look burdened, just quiet, free. Samuel watched from a respectful distance. After a few minutes, Adrian signed something toward him. Samuel shrugged. Still don't know what that means. Adrian sighed dramatically, then picked up a stick and wrote in the sand. Thank you. Samuel's eyebrows shot up. Oh, you're welcome. The boy looked at him with a faint flicker in his eyes, something between curiosity and trust. It lasted only a moment. Then he wiped the sand clean. Days passed. Adrian didn't speak, but he had a way of communicating through looks, gestures, typed notes, and eventually, very slowly, sign language Samuel began to learn. The boy was smart. Too smart. He noticed everything. He memorized patterns, watched people, predicted their movements. Some of the staff whispered about him. He's not just mute, he's different. There's something dangerous in his eyes. But Samuel saw something else. Loneliness, pain, and a silent hunger for connection. One evening, Samuel parked the car in the state garage and turned to find Adrian staring at him intensely. The boy signed slowly. You're not like the others. Why? Samuel hesitated. Because I don't think you're broken. Just hurting. Adrian froze. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Adrian signed a single word. Stay. Samuel frowned. Stay where? The boy pointed at the floor. The garage. Samuel exhaled. Your dad told me to take you inside. Adrian shook his head firmly. He typed on his phone. They're watching. Don't go yet. Samuel felt a chill run up his spine. Who? Adrian didn't answer. He stepped closer, the closest he'd ever been, and signed. Trust me, please. And that was the moment Samuel realized the job wasn't just about driving. It was about protection. Something, or someone, was after Adrian. And the silent boy who hadn't spoken a word in years suddenly had far too much to say.